everybody. Welcome to The Banished Zone, the show about flesh and blood with Bryn.
And with Chris.
And today we are talking about, you guessed it, flesh and blood.
Really? I can't stand by that. I can't abide talking
really?
about flesh
What would
and
you
blood
prefer to talk about?
Lorcana. They dropped the news about that game.
Oh my god, don't, I'm going to beep that out.
No one will know what game we're talking about. No, that game seems boring, and I don't really want to play as Mickey Mouse or whatever.
All right, we don't need to start with negativity.
Okay, the game is probably fine.
If you want to play Lorcana, have fun.
It doesn't look bad. It looks fine.
I'm not going to say anything about it.
We'll edit all this out. This never happened.
We will not be editing this out.
Okay. Just imagine that the show's starting here, folks.
Yeah, imagine the show is starting here. How have you been? Have you had a good skirmish week? That's the really important part. We're in the midst of skirmish season.
Deep in skirmish season. We are 6? Is that what it is?
1 week away from Pro Tour 3.
Mm-hmm. Very exciting time. The only Pro Tour of the year.
Everyone is confused. Even the biggest players in the world seem to be, I just listened to the Manor podcast.
Oh, nice. I haven't actually heard it yet.
Roger and Michael posted an episode called Off the Rails.
Okay.
Because they didn't have a, like us, we didn't have like a specific topic to talk about. I think we'll talk about skirmish and the meta and stuff right now.
Yeah.
And what's going on. But they're in a team.
Yeah.
So they can't even tell you what they're doing. But the sense I got wasn't like we have secret super spicy tech. We're all on the same like broken deck that we found. It's like they're settling on one of the many very good decks. And they will play it and hope.
Yeah.
And I think that's how everyone feels, is that there isn't like a Starvo. There's
no chain.
There isn't even a chain. There isn't
there's no prism that
Icelander.
like hard counters certain decks and is just like broken in general, so it's really good into a lot of stuff.
If you recall, we released an episode called Winter Will Rot because my opinion was that they wouldn't release a set that didn't change the meta.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of people wanted to argue with me about that, as though they were like, looks underpowered, as if people haven't been saying that for every single set that's come out.
Yeah, people were like, well, classes like Ranger and Assassin haven't been good, so when they print a whole set for those classes,
it won't be good.
There's no way they get good. What? New cards makes a hero good? That's impossible.
Man, people really need to check themselves. It's interesting the level of, because I've been a woman in nerd areas, right? The thing about comics and music, music isn't like nerdy per se, but it's the same kind of dudes. But it's like in comics, there's facts about stories.
Sure.
And, you're either right or wrong. It's Spider-Man appeared in Amazing Fantasy issue 13 or he didn't.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like Streaky's first appearance is from, whatever. Like
it was a Mandela effect that you found out how big the Hulk's cock was. They never printed that.
They never showed that.
Yeah. But you had a fever dream that it was 10 inches long.
Right, but there was you were either right or you were wrong about trivia and writers. And, you can argue over whether things are good or bad or whatever, but like that's all subjective opinions.
Right, there's no meta for comic books.
And this kind of this community, or not community flesh and blood wise, but this whole scene of trading card games is really interesting because like there's a lot of people who just have opinions based on basically vibes, but they say it with the confidence of fact.
Yeah. And it feels like sometimes it's like,
and I think you guys gotta chill on that shit.
It sometimes even feels like people who practice and play more, or more like quote unquote pro type players, are even more susceptible to this in a way, because it's like they have a lot of data and experience where they're like, oh, in the last 3 metas, I played 1,000 games of Oldhim each time. It's like my team tested Oldhim and he was the best deck. And then in Outsiders, Uprising meta, Oldhim was really good. So, they banned Hammer and Oldhim was still good. So it's like they start thinking that like enough old data is like enough to just qualify as current data. It's like a new set comes out and they're like, yeah, Oldhim is still going to be the best deck.
Right.
And I still think he's a great deck.
Of course.
But people sort of just like...
But I think everyone kind of agrees that like Icelander has been pushed out of the meta. Like, she's not fast enough or has disruption in enough ways that like counter Azalea and Lexi.
She's just really bad at taking disruption herself as well. It's like she can handle Guardian disruption because Guardians are sort of like, if I hit you, you lose power on your attacks, or you can't gain go again, or a lot of stuff that doesn't actually affect wizard decks. So Icelander is free to like leak some damage against Oldhim or Bravo and then still play out her hands the way she wants to, which is usually like block with one card, present an attack or a spell, and then arsenal something and use Waning Moon.
Right.
But against Azalea or Lexi, it's like if you really are wanting to like block out on hit effects, if you're getting hit with inertia, which neuters your whole plan, it just fucks up the game. It's
pretty rough for Icelander right now.
But I don't even think like fully pushed out, which I think is what's been good about this meta is that like
I don't think Michael Hamilton's gonna play her.
Yeah,
I would bet money he doesn't.
I would agree. I guess I mean like not so pushed out in the sense that it's like no longer a top tier deck, but it's still a playable deck.
Sure.
I feel like there were decks.
It's not Levia.
Sure. I feel like there were decks that were like so unplayable into Starvo, and Starvo was like half of the meta.
Of course.
That it's kind of like, why play them?
But the same, I think you could say the same with this winter.
Yeah.
Where it was Icelander and Oldhim, and if you were going to try and play something else, it was a bad idea.
Yeah,
like,
especially once they banned Belittle. Like the funny thing was that it was like ice focused bans, and then also like a slight nerf to Fi, and just like generally banning a card that they probably wish they'd banned a while ago because it is like so above rate in certain decks. But yeah, it turns out that like banning some of the ice cards but also banning Belittle just made Fi have a really rough time into ice and sort of just pushed it into an ice focused meta.
Anyway, so the meta is in this very weird place right now, or good in my opinion, a great place.
Yeah,
where lots
I
of
agree.
stuff is viable. No one knows what the best deck is, and I feel like people are not complaining as much as I would have expected, which is great. I feel like people are just sort of like anxious.
Yeah, there's nothing that's so untargetable that it's like annoying to play against, because people will compare new Azalea to Starvo, where it's like this is coming in for 12 dominate with threatening on hits, but Azalea does not have the like resilience and like insane card quality
and
consistency of Guardian. It's like she can still get no arrow hands, she can still be fatigued, she still doesn't have her own weapon that does anything.
Yeah,
so
she's got downsides.
Yeah, and it's like I've definitely
heard really good design.
I've heard players complain about this kind of situation before, where it's like people sort of, when they're in a meta that's more open, they miss the like one deck format, like Chain back in the early days of Chain, or like Starvo, where it's like all you have to do is like learn a deck, tech for the mirror, and it's like it'll beat any decks that aren't in the like top tier, top echelon or whatever, because your deck is so overpowered.
Right.
And that's like not really a good thing for like any more casual player or for fans of the game necessarily. Like I don't even think it's a terrible thing balance wise, but it's not the kind of balance that LSS wants, it seems. They want more things to be viable.
Yes, I think so too. And I mean, I get it. I mean, if you're a professional player and you test a bunch of stuff, like it would be nice to have an answer that is like, whatever, I'll just play the best deck.
Yeah.
Like that's easy. But it's like, if everything has counters and that is like real hard, like real bad matchups, that's harder to decide. Like, who am I going to dodge? Who's actually going to be played? It's interesting. They were talking about on the Manor podcast, like Roger has been like, Dromai sucks, is bad hero, terrible.
Sure.
And he's like, well, I guess he had some game into Ranger, and now Ranger's ever good. You know, like it's, and he's like, but I can't play Dromai because I've been the Dromai sucks guy.
You're allowed.
Yeah, obviously. Who cares?
Yeah.
But like, also, I don't think Dromai is good. Like,
I think she's decent.
I think lots of people will be playing her because of the kinds of like what you were talking about, like previous, like last known information about the meta.
Yeah.
People are like, Dromai good to Ranger.
Right. It's like,
and it's like
they were like, I before they probably never dropped a game into Ranger, or like very rarely lost to Azalea, and so they're like, that should hold true now. And
I think that, I mean, we saw right at the beginning with the Chicago Brawl, lots of people. She was the highest played deck.
Oh yeah, it's like 15 players.
Was she even in the top 8?
I think she didn't make the top 8. Maybe one person did.
But I think that kind of data, actually in the Pro Tour, means we won't see as much.
Yeah, like, I think some pro players.
People are going to look at that and be like, I don't know if this is actually that good into Ranger. And
Yeah.
if you're targeting Ranger and Guardian, I guess, but you're still kind of losing to them, then it's not a good deck to play.
It's possible that there's like really next level illusionist players who will target it better, because I feel like I maybe this is just like different kind of cope that people are like, oh, but no one's building Dromai in the right way, or like a lot of people are building it in a non-optimal way.
Yeah,
which is like, what's this secret optimal way to?
No shade to anybody. If if you got your secret optimal way to build Dromai and play Dromai and you're gonna win, hey, more power to you.
I mean, because it's like, it's certainly not a terrible deck to be bringing to play Guardian and Rangers, because it's like has a lot of 3 blocks, has game plans that can be hard for like tall decks to deal with if you set up a bunch of Ashwings, has good defensive options in sand cover, in defense reactions. It can play
sand cover is not a good defensive option. That's a problem.
It's good against dominate.
No, it isn't.
Because it's an instant. I just mean like
it sucks.
Why?
Ugh, whatever. We're not getting into the minutia of Dromai right now.
I certainly don't think Dromai is like an amazing choice either, but it's like it can target these decks kind of. Like in a way more so than you could like target Oldhim with Katsu, where you don't really have any way to like be threatening into Oldhim, I think.
So the meta is in a crazy place right now.
Mm-hmm.
A very cool place, I think.
Yeah, Azalea is in fact the business, it seems.
And that's for CC. The thing is like everyone loves to talk about this stuff. Like I pointed out last episode, most of the people who are talking about this aren't playing in the Pro Tour.
Sure,
like us. We're not playing in the Pro Tour.
We're playing in the
I
calling.
will be playing in the calling.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to this rest of the CC meta and what we think about the calling in a second. But right now it's been skirmish season, and that's Blitz.
Yeah.
And Blitz is in a totally opposite place right now, which is you will play Wizard or you'll die.
Yeah. Or you can play a hard counter to Wizard and hope to dodge other matchups that are
which is Rhinar.
Yeah, or Prism, I think. I haven't actually played the matchup, so I don't know exactly, but it's pretty hard for Wizards to deal with auras.
You can target auras with Spectra.
If you have an attack in your deck.
No. With
arcane damage? No.
You can't target.
They don't have health.
Oh, right.
You can attack them.
Yeah.
You can attack them with a weapon or an attack action card.
Right, that's really stupid.
Well, Wizards can't attack. They can't.
Yeah. There's some rules with that Spectra that I think shouldn't exist.
I feel like, would it be that bad if Wizards could just target it? I don't know.
No, it wouldn't. The only reason it's unwinnable is because it's designed badly.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the game. No shade. But, like, the rules should say they can be targeted by anything.
Yeah. If the whole theming is that it's like, it's an illusory, like, aura that if you poke at it, it goes away and you don't have to do any damage to it, but then your turn ends because you're confused.
Now, Spectral Shield makes a little sense because if it basically has ward, like it's going to break.
If you deal them damage,
if you deal damage to the hero. I just think all orders should work like that. You shouldn't be able to get 6 like merciless retributions and passive mirage and all that shit and then not be able to hit them.
Yeah,
like
it's
a
silly.
wall of doing 6 damage for free every turn. Like that's a stupid board state that like
hey, at least no Luminaris anymore in CC.
Non-blitz?
Well, in Blitz, sure. In Blitz it exists.
It's stupid.
It's goofy, but not as stupid as taking a free turn in like a 2 or 3 turn format. It's
okay, that's an interesting point.
It's quite busted, and I think what we're seeing in the Blitz meta right now is that they were correct to ban Stormstriders in Blitz before Worlds, and
I disagree.
I think from the perspective of how broken it makes certain decks, they were correct, and it seems like their answer is kind of just like, well, that deck,
let him living legend.
That deck is targetable, so let it living legend. And then we'll see what happens with Kano. Like, will Kano just living legend? It sort of feels...
it's interesting because... So right now, what's happened is in Blitz... I don't remember... I wish it said what they had before.
Well, you can use a handy-dandy calculator to figure that out if you like.
I see. Yeah, that's true. Oldhim currently has 494. And you have to have 500 living legend points to living legend.
In Blitz, yeah. For young heroes.
Right. Oldhim has 494, 6 away.
Yeah.
So he needs to win 3 more skirmishes.
Seems pretty easy, yeah.
And he'll living legend.
It'd be funny if he doesn't, but
it will be very funny if he doesn't. But also armories don't do super armories.
No armory.
No armory, just skirmish.
That's the thing.
And Blitz battle hardened.
Battle hardens, yeah. So battle hardens
is the Pro
lately.
Tour battle hardened. Blitz.
There is a Blitz battle hardened at Baltimore, so that could get some points.
I would be surprised if Icelander or Oldham doesn't win that.
My guess is Icelander will probably, or Kano has been winning Blitz battle hardens actually, but
a little bit. I mean, according to this, only
he's not been winning many skirmishes.
What's half of 32?
15 or 16.
So only 16.
Yeah, I was surprised by that because like I thought that Kano was like similarly powered to Icelander, but it seems like a lot of people think Icelander's actually better.
So Icelander has won 71, which is far and away the most.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that
no one else has even cracked 50.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, no one else has even cracked 25 skirmishes.
And she's 170.
She's 171.
Yeah, it's like the heavy arcane build. It's kind of just a deck without really bad matchups. It's like Rhinar is a matchup where you can get high rolled, and I think
but that's how Rhinar is in everybody.
Right, and heavy Aura Prism.
You can still win.
Yeah, I think is like a tricky matchup and not a great matchup, but still highly winnable. It's not even like it's auto loss.
The problem with the Prism matchup is that it takes time, and if you can high roll Prism where it's just like, before you get to 3 auras, I'm killing you.
For sure.
You're fucking dead.
Because they have a lot of yellows and some of their auras are their blues. So if they're like playing out a blue and then pitching anything and then they're going down to like 2 pitch in their hand and you're presenting, 5 damage on their turn.
Even if they're running AB4, it's probably going to be 2 cards from their hand to block that out.
Spectral Shields are good at blocking damage. So it's like they have a better game plan into Wizard than a lot of decks, and they have their own instance. But
Icelander in that deck, that's like all aggro, arcane damage, is dealing like on average like 8 arcane a turn. It's on like their turn, and then on your turn, like at least 5.
I think it averages out to be about like 11 on the way the game plan wants to work, because you want to play a red 1 for 4 and Waning Moon on your turn. So that's 4 and 2 makes 6.
Yeah.
And then on their turn, you want to do a blue 1 for 2 and Waning Moon for 5. So it adds up to 11. Like your turn and their turn.
What did you just say? Waning Moon for 5? Waning for 3.
Waning Moon for 3 plus a blue 1 for 2.
Right.
So a total of 5. Yeah. So over a turn cycle, 11, and then it can be more if you play.
But that's only one hand for them. So to block all of that out, that have used their whole hand. So they're always leaking damage.
They have to leak. They can definitely beat you down with just heralds as well, where it's like a 1 for 7 go again, a 2 for 5.
Because you don't have poppers.
You have 1 popper maybe if you have Nourishing Emptiness.
Sure.
Maybe none.
I just think like even if that's all they're doing, like that's still 2 turns where they're not blocking all of the arcane damage you're doing, and you're generally going to be doing their entire life total in 2 turns.
And you can run Scour pretty easily. It's just like a blue. It becomes like a titanium bauble in other matchups. Like it's fine to block 3 with it or pitch it, and you can destroy their 0 cost auras.
And so the
stuff.
fun news is that Chris exploited this and won a skirmish.
Oh yeah.
Well, technically not won, but split the. You were in the top 2, and then you split.
So I played the busted Icelander Blitz deck at a skirmish. I've been playing it some, like different versions of it at armories, and actually having like bad luck. Like there was a couple months ago, I was playing Oldham and won an armory, and then was like, I'll switch to Icelander and see if this is good. I think I lost to you. I think I lost to Rhinar again.
Who was I?
Rhinar. It like didn't feel close. Also, I just felt like maybe I was playing the deck badly, but like I had a couple armories where I played Icelander and didn't do great, and was like, okay, it's good. And then more recently, I won an armory with it, and it felt pretty busted in Blitz.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay,
it was the same deck.
Not quite like the same concept. Like the same concept of like run almost all red spells and like a few attacks. I think before I had like E-strikes and fighting spirits, and then maybe went down to just E-strikes. And then the one I brought to the skirmish is the one that's like a little tech for the mirror, where it has just Nourishing Emptiness, so you can go to a 5-card hand in the mirror. But it's like the same basic idea that I think probably almost all these Icelanders are running, is like just hit them with arcane damage. Even if they have AB 3 or 4, they can't stop all of it. They're leaking damage, and then you can pretty consistently deal between like 10 and 15 on your kill turn, because you can do Red Emeritus, Blue Emeritus, Waning Moon, Metacarpus, adds up to 15.
Right.
Very hard for anyone to stop. So yeah, I got through Swiss relatively easily. I only lost to a Bravo who had a lot of life gain and just like gained life outside of a kill range before he pummeled me to death, I think.
At the skirmish?
At the skirmish, yeah. My one loss in Swiss was round 1 against a Bravo because he had Blessing of Deliverance and Sigils, and I think he played all 4 of them.
That's a good move.
He gained like 10 life in the game, so then he was at 9 at the end, and it meant he was able to present more damage. I won a couple mirrors in Swiss. I think I beat a Dash in top 8, which was a tricky matchup, but I managed to get enough damage. I beat a Icelander mirror in top 4 using a very spicy rewind, which I put in my deck last minute.
Right.
Which was awesome.
There was a moment where me and my friend Tony were sort of talking, and then I like checked in on the game that Chris was playing. It was for the finals.
Yeah,
and,
it was
the semifinals.
Semifinals, yeah.
And we had Tony and I had we're not in the top.
I think
8,
you guys didn't make top 8.
So we were just hanging
out watching.
And I looked over and I said, "Tony, look." And we looked at Chris's hand, and it was an Icelander mirror.
You guys did this so sneakily. Like I think I noticed you were looking, but I didn't realize you were like telling someone else to look because you're being. I mean, you had to be very sneaky.
Yeah, I didn't want to like blow up your hand.
You didn't want to share any information. Yeah.
Right.
So you were like very. You did a great job at being sneaky.
And I was just like, and Chris had a rewind in his hand, and I think the life totals were 2-2.
It was something
4-2.
It was like 4-5 or something like that. It was very close to Stormstrider's range. Like we were getting to the point of the game where
no.
Was it lower?
Your opponent was at 2.
Was he at 2? Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. I forget it was that low. The thing is, I think I was probably winning this game anyway, but this like just locked it up for me.
No, if you didn't have the rewind in your hand and the line went the way it went, he would have killed you.
I think I could have Stridered in response though and killed him. Maybe? I'm not sure.
I guess you had the blue in your hand, but you had no more cards, right?
I don't know if I had another red to play.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
So.
I mean, I could have AB'd because he only.
Well, I mean, you might have not played it the way you played it if.
It definitely was cool to have like a thing that I was like, I'm pretty sure this guarantees I win because he cannot.
It was in your
Striders me.
arsenal.
I ended
up
up
arsenaled the rewind, a card that I loved since day one.
It's an awesome card.
I looked at that card. I was like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play it. And then it like never worked for me in Kano.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a whiff in Kano.
Yeah.
And I wasn't playing Icelander very well. And then no one was running it in their Icelander. So I was just like, oh, it's a shame. I have the upside down one, the backwards rewind.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like really excited to play it and never did. So I was really excited because I told Tony, I said, moments before we left for the armory, Chris was like, what do you think about putting one rewind in this deck? And I was like, he was like, for the mirror. And I was like, maybe, I don't know. And he was like, yeah, I think I'm going to. You just like did it on a complete whim. And then your semifinals match, the last game you actually played in the skirmish, came down to you having a rewind in your arsenal, presenting an attack, them waning moon, breaking their Luvian, you breaking your Luvian, waning moon on the stack, and then he breaks Stormstriders and then plays a red Scalding Rain and then rewinding it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Because it just
there's nothing you can do anymore.
He was dead on the board at that point because he broke his AB2. So then 4 damage was coming in, and he had AB2 left, I think, with a Luvian and Metacarpus.
Yeah. And like you could tank I think you didn't even have to pitch for the Waning Moon damage that he put on the stack because he was dead to your Waning Moon first, right?
Oh, yeah, I forget how that actually ended up. I mean, because he was dead to the Scalding, but I think I might have AB'd some of the Waning Moon even like as it happened. I forget exactly. It was like a lot of like wizardy back and forth, but yeah, it was very fun.
And Tony and I were intoxicated, and we were just watching this silently, being like, "What the fuck? This is insane! What the hell's going on?"
Yeah, a very very cool moment. I was impressed with myself for being able to like keep my cool and like play it and pull it off without like being too like telegraphed that I had the win or whatever. Yeah. So then we get to the finals, and the matchup is supposed to be me versus our friend who's playing Prism.
Now, before you say anything more. It's now that you've named the person. Is this legal? What happened?
It's fine. Yeah. So we hadn't presented our decks yet. So if you haven't presented decks, you're allowed to like discuss if someone wants to concede or if you want to split the prizing or whatever.
Okay.
I I think.
I don't know if you are.
I guess
There's been interesting.
we should double check, I guess.
I mean, there's been an interesting conversation about that because I think, like, lots of people do it. We've talked about how lots of people have.
Well, we should edit out the name. We'll cut this part out.
Now I have to beep more?
I don't know.
Oh my god.
No, but you're making a good point because I'm actually not like.
I don't know if it is legal to even talk about splitting pricing. I don't think that's. I think we actually have talked about it on the show before.
Okay.
That you're not actually supposed to do any of the stuff that our friend in Jersey does quite often, which is they get to the end of the top 8 of Road to Nats or Skirmish or whatever, and it's like, you want to take the gold foil, I'll take the PTI.
Right.
I think that's just straight up not allowed.
And
it's
maybe
so rampant that, like,
are you saying you're supposed to only be like, we'll split by saying like, let's just split the value of the prizing down the middle, like each of us gets 50% of the prizing, and then.
I don't remember what is actually allowed, but I'm pretty sure the normal thing of let's not even play the game, I'll take this thing I want, you take this thing I want, is specifically not allowed in the rules.
Huh. But everyone does it, so it's
I know everyone does it.
It seems like it's fine.
It's not fine, and I don't want to say it on I don't want to get anybody in trouble, is what I'm saying. We haven't named the store, and we now have to beep out a name. So
sorry, I didn't.
But you did it. So if anybody's getting in trouble, it's Chris.
Well, I guess we shouldn't go into specifics of what we did, but
right. The point is that.
So
Chris got the azalea.
Yeah, I got the cold foil, and it felt good. I'm not on the board as having won a skirmish,
right? But you will be
because I conceded. Yeah, no, I don't know. You make a good point that I'm unsure about how much you should talk about.
But it was exciting. You got to the very top.
It was fun. This is my first time getting to a finals of anything other than an armory.
Oh yeah, because you've only top 8'd ProQuest.
I've top 8'd ProQuest, but never made it to the finals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. After the show, we will look at the rules and we'll make sure. Next episode, we'll tell you for sure what is allowed. Because I remember looking this up with you at some point and being like, I don't think any of that stuff is allowed.
I think you are allowed to. I guess it's sort of like it's in a weird gray area because it's like
I don't think it's that gray, honestly.
Like you're allowed to, before starting, like ask your opponent if they want to concede, and I think you're allowed to offer to split prizing, as in like sell the cold foil or whatever, and then like each take half of the profit. So I guess you could argue like, well, if you do it and then like buy each other, one person pays the other for how much the profit was. Because I think it is weird, because I think the thing you're not allowed to do is like offer them like money, be like, I'll give you $50 if you concede. So
you're not allowed to bribe. Well, I know that's not allowed.
So I guess is the question, like, does giving someone the prizing that you got count as bribing or something potentially?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. All right. Well, we're not going into specifics.
We will not go into specifics, but
good call.
We got prizing.
Yeah.
But you know, if you are a judge who has been reading this, or you're just watching this, I mean, we're both judges. It's hard to remember all this stuff. But updated that players may now concede for any reason during a game before time is called, but must still call a judge to oversee concession. Players cannot concede any reason after time is called in the round.
But this is about
that's
during the game, not beforehand.
Game. Oh, and that's also not the most recent.
I mean, I think
updated concession policy to allow players to concede after time is called if no in-game action has been taken. Once an action is taken, the players are committing to finishing the game cannot concede without a good reason.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when I say it's in a gray area, it's the same as, like, I don't think they actually say on their website you are allowed to sell a PTI. They say you're allowed to gift a PTI, and they also don't get people in trouble for being like, I will buy a PTI for $500, or I'll sell my PTI for $700. You know what I mean? So
no, I remember that.
So I think it's sort of like, because you are allowed to ask for a concession, it's sort of like, at this point, if people are friends or know each other, and it's like one asks for a concession, they both agree to concede, and then afterwards somebody gets a card or trades a card or whatever. It's sort of like if you just are like, oh, I traded him this card for a card I wanted. I guess what I'm saying is it's a gray area because it reaches a point where it's like very hard to like legislate or like actually find like evidence for exactly, and so it's sort of like
right.
It's a gray area where it's like basically allowed because you're allowed, because if they just said like you're never allowed to discuss conceding for any reason before a game, you're only allowed to concede on your own, then that would kind of be like there's no window to discuss splitting or anything, and you can't talk about it, so the only way someone can split is if somebody just like decides to do it. But it's I don't know. Yeah, it is weird. It is weird that they don't like make it more explicit if they
well, I think it's a weird thing because people have some really intense opinions about this. Do you know what I mean?
For like sure.
People are. It says players may intentionally draw games and or matches by mutual agreement at any time.
Oh, not in elimination rounds because you can't draw.
Well, whatever. We'll figure it out later.
We'll talk about it later.
This is not the point. But the point is that you got into
under advisement of our lawyers. All we're admitting at this time is that I was in the finals of a skirmish, and I tactically ascertained a path wherein I would receive the Azalea cold foil. I'm not saying nothing beyond that.
Yeah, and I will be. Any more questions can go to my lawyer. Anyway,
it was really fun.
It was a great time.
I had a great time making the finals. I am glad I have the Azalea. I'm excited to play more skirmishes. I know I shouldn't miss this deck, but I kind of will, and I'm thinking
why not shouldn't?
Because it's broken and it's like unfair to other people wanting to play not wizard decks. Like the matchup into Kasai feels really unfair.
Let's break down what you just said.
Yeah,
it's really good. So, of course, you'd want to play a really good deck.
Sure.
That makes winning less grindy and difficult. And unfair. Like, that doesn't mean anything. Like, I don't know how it's unfair to people who don't want to play. Like, unfair to people who don't want to play a good deck is, like, weird to me.
Yeah, I think it's like...
just play a better deck then.
It's just different to how they want to balance stuff in CC. So it's like...
Well, sure.
I think it's not good for a meta if it can be like completely defined by one class or like one piece of equipment. It is. I mean, it's fun if you like playing that deck in the mirror. But if anyone wants to play a different deck, there shouldn't be decks that feel like they have almost no chance of winning against this deck, which I feel like there are many. Like I think any aggro deck, like Fi or Katsu or aggro Ira is gonna have a really hard time. Dash, because of like her ability to gain resources and like just the sheer amount of damage she can put out while like still having some blues and having natural high AB is like can be an issue. And
for Icelander.
Yeah, it's like it's not so busted that like absolutely it's not at the level of Skeleton Viscerai and Blitz where it's like you can block out,
which was so fun.
Yeah,
I see. Here's what I'm saying is that I miss Skeleton Viscerai.
It's
like,
definitely a balancing issue.
I don't care that it was hard to beat. Like it was fun to play, and it's gone now, and that's how the game works.
For sure.
Like that's the point. Is that like they are okay with stuff living legending when it's too good. That's the whole point.
Yeah,
and I think
especially in a skirmish season where it's not really that high stakes. It's not like Worlds. Where
I haven't heard a good argument for like why people don't think Living Legend is like isn't a great system. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, because it gives people a chance to like feel like they're making the deck leave by winning with it instead of the deck is just banned and you can't play with it anymore.
Right. You get your time in the sun. You get a fun time, and then it goes away because the meta has to change.
Yeah.
So it's okay to miss it.
Yeah,
it's a reasonable thing.
It's just a deck that has a very fun and skill intensive mirror, and also is fun to play and feels like I wouldn't say skill intensive. It has like a skill floor where I had to learn how to play Wizard a bit to be good at it, but I feel like once I learned the play patterns of the deck, it's like, oh, okay, this is really unfair and easy to win with against a lot of other decks. Like
One thing that's funny, I was listening to Flesh and Pod.
Okay.
And Derrick was saying
That's
Derrick. He was saying that he hates the mirror.
For Icelander or for anything?
No. He hates mirrors.
Mm.
And I was like, wait, why? Like, what do you mean you hate playing mirrors? Like, they're all so different in Flesh and Blood.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Phi mirror sucks. Because
it's high roll.
It's just whoever wins the dice roll and then goes second is probably going to win. And there's not that many, like, fun, weird change-ups that can happen.
Just like if you draw bad cards going second, you can lose tempo. And if your opponent draws great cards,
the Oldham mirror is insane and hilarious.
Yeah.
But the Icelander mirror is, like, huge-brained, like, very technical, very skill-intensive, can be grindy, can be a blowout.
Yeah.
It just really depends. And I feel like a good mirror can be some of the funnest stuff you can do in the game.
Yeah, it's a mirror where Hope Merchant's Hood is a correct armor choice, which is awesome. I love activating Hope Merchant's Hood. In Swiss, my wizard opponent had Hope Merchants in his list. I think people are like, they always want to run it against Kano, but he didn't run it against Icelander. He ran Crown of Providence.
Right.
And then I managed to use Hope Merchants to find a blue when I had a red to AB and not die and then kill him. And then in top 8, he was running a Hope Merchant's Hood because he was like, oh, hey, that's good in the mirror.
That's
I kind of want that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really fun. Yeah, it's it just depends on the mirror. And it's like, yeah, it's hard to imagine hating it. I can imagine like finding it annoying if your deck is like the only one people are playing and like all you have to think about are Starvo mirrors or chain mirrors or whatever.
I think I get that. Like, there's definitely been mirrors that I don't want to run into where it's like, ugh, the mirror, especially with CC Icelander when everyone was playing Bullander and doing it poorly, like myself. Like, that wasn't a fun mirror to run into.
Oh, because you just felt like you got skill gapped every time?
No, because it's boring.
Oh, okay.
It's 7. Okay, I'll block, and then I'll do a Waning Moon on your turn, or I'll give you a Frostbite. You're only going to do one action on your turn, so Frostbites don't even really matter. Like, all the mechanics of what's fun about Icelander kind of go away because there isn't really good disruption.
Interesting.
And then it's like, okay, you're playing the big attack. I'm, like, it doesn't even really matter that I'm playing a Frostbite.
The thing I liked about...
And then it's like, I guess, because it's going to go away, and then... you Waning Moon, and then it's like, okay, I block, and then it's just like this sort of like real grindy but like not very interesting back and forth, and then something at the end happens that can be weird or interesting, but like I didn't love it. It took a long time.
Sure, yeah, Icelander games, ice decks make games take a long time,
and I mean same. I can't imagine the Oldham mirror being very fun either.
It's just pitch stack better reds and block better.
But there can be some good mirrors. The Viserai mirror was really fun.
Okay.
Kano mirrors are crazy.
Oh yeah, Kano mirrors are weird. The thing I liked about the CC,
I love them.
The CC Icelander mirror is that it's like a matchup that has like these distinct stages, and like your board state can matter a lot. Where it's like if you have out multiple amulets of ice before they banned it, that's like was a way, or like Insidious Chills, it's a way to like threaten your opponent in the late game to like strip their hand. But then if you have energy potions, that can sort of counter your opponent's items. So it's like the board state and the counters on your Alluvian, and then the sort of back and forth nature. The thing I really like about the Icelander mirror is that you have to consider when it's not your turn, you're blocking or pitching or playing, but then it's going to become actually your turn. Your opponent will have probably an arsenal and 4 cards, and then you have to not get blown out by that. So you can't just like empty your hand.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying. The strategy was pretty fixed.
Okay.
Like, you can't do that.
Right, you just can't. So you're kind of It's kind of like just play one card and
play
try
the
to
card,
like hold back.
Block one card from their 7.
Yeah.
Take 4, Waning Moon,
Yeah.
Then you play your big red attack.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
it's just like they do the same thing you just did. It's just kind of boring.
Yeah, it's definitely like sometimes mirrors can, especially if a deck has like a pretty like decided on meta variant, it's kind of hard to be like teching for the mirror unless you think it's going to be like, I feel like in this current meta,
but Azaleas are going to have to.
They're going to have to sort of, but it also feels like you don't want to give up too much valuable sideboard space to the mirror that you could be giving up for any other, like,
Right. Now that we're talking about CC, what are you bringing to the Pro Tour or to the calling? We're going to Baltimore, by the way. I don't know if we've announced that as a show.
Oh yeah. We
will be in Baltimore.
We'll be there.
It's close.
I don't think there's any reason I would switch off of Lexi. I've been having a lot of fun with Lexi. It feels good. It has, with the new cards, the codices and the new arrows, Fuseless Lexi is a very strong choice.
It's a powerhouse.
It top 8'd a Battle Hardened recently, beating Oldhams along the way.
Right.
Yeah, it looks like a great deck that has not really terrible matchups.
Now, the thing about Chris is that when we first got into the game, he had option paralysis to the point where he was not playing the game very much. He was like thinking about it a lot, but like...
Or I was like going to an armory and being like, I'll throw a deck together, and then just like putting together a weird Briar deck out of our chaff. And it was like at this point, we didn't have many cards. We didn't have a lot of the like legendary armor pieces. So it was like...
But he couldn't think of like, what are we going to buy? Like, what do I... Out of all the $150 cards that I would need to play a fun, CC deck, or do I want to go the path of just buying something cheap or whatever,
I didn't know what I wanted to play really,
which is understandable. I think a lot of people have that feeling of like there's so many different heroes. Who do I want to invest in? Whose playstyle do I really like?
Totally,
and at this point, Talishar didn't exist, or even when it was called Flesh and Blood Online, didn't even exist.
That's true. So
there wasn't trying it out other than like Felt Table, which is sucky.
I do remember doing with Icelander, and this is before Uprising came out, so it was Everfest Icelander.
Oh right.
And I was like, I don't really get what this deck does. I had like no idea. I was like, how do I win? What am I trying to do? I don't get it. Right. So I was like, okay, I think not Icelander. That seems too hard, which I think is fair. Like no one locally was playing Icelander then, really.
No one knew what Icelander was supposed to do either.
It's
funny
cards
now because like that Blitz deck has like hardly any Uprising cards in it, right?
I think...
What are the important stuff? Oh, Waning Moon is the big one.
Waning Moon is a big one.
Alluvian is the big one.
And also the fact that there's like more 1-for-4 spells, because you got like Aether Hail, red and blue, and then you got Aether Quickening, red and blue, so you would have had to just do Scalding Rain. But I think you could do a deck that was like kind of like this one in Blitz, and it would have been busted back then, especially because there were less bans. Like, didn't we start playing and they hadn't banned Snapback yet?
Oh yeah,
I think
Snap and Stir were fucking not banned. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, so I think like the best players, like when there was the that Blitz calling in Krakow, there were Icelanders at top tables and maybe some in the top 8, just because it's like it could run. She can run Stormstriders, and Stormstriders is incredibly good.
I think that's the big thing, is that playing Wizard is a pretty big brain, like, difficult thing to do.
Yeah, especially if it doesn't have, like, obvious card pool and, like, playstyle setup.
So, I mean, Stormstriders, I just don't understand. If I knew what I knew now, and Icelander came out with the card pool she had, you can still do, like, 10 unblockable damage. No matter what, because you have Stormstriders.
For sure.
I feel like people weren't being, like, people were still losing? I don't really get it.
It is weird, yeah. I mean, the weapon, it makes a big difference. Waning Moon is a really powerful weapon.
That's true. Although, yeah, because you had Krakens before.
Yeah,
Oh my god. Isn't Krakens and Quiver of Abyssal Depths the same background?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
Hang on a second.
Kraken's Aethervine?
What?
Fabrary?
Fabrary.
All right, let's pull this up. What is the background? Like the depths of the sea?
It's got fucking...
it is Kraken.
Because Kraken... Yeah.
Kinda? Let's see.
Oh my god.
Let's examine this.
Hang on. Quiver of Abyssal Depths and Krakens have the exact same, like, tentacle background.
Oh, there's tentacles. Yeah. That's interesting.
What the hell?
Are they both Steve Argyle?
Yes. Interesting.
The other one, the Quiver is Steve Argyle?
All right, guys. Underwater set confirmed.
Yeah.
We're getting pirates.
Underwater wizard.
Pirate, Ranger pirate. I don't know. This is a really weird coincidence. I just imagined Krakens, and I was like, wait, that's the same shit.
It's underwater. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's very specifically like under
Maybe
the water.
Maybe it's supposed to be wispies, but they look like tentacles.
I mean, it's Kraken. I kind of feel like it's implied that it's a Kraken.
That's a fucking Kraken, buddy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, sorry, we got off track. You were saying I had option paralysis before I picked Lexi.
Yeah, Chris had option, and then he was loving. I don't remember why, but I remember buying you a cold foil New Horizon as a present.
The thing that I
Maybe
read
for
was
your birthday. And
I read
no, because you played Lexi at Pro Tour 1, right?
Yeah, you bought this before the Pro Tour, or at the calling.
Your birthday.
I think you just were getting cards and wanted to get one for us.
Yeah, I'm a degenerate.
Yeah, I mean it was a good investment. It's doubled in price since you bought it. True,
but I'm not going to sell it either.
Definitely not. I read Yuki's article about her like 2021 Canadian Nats Lexi deck.
Oh yeah,
her like weird snapshot deck
Yuki
dealer.
Lee Bender.
And I was like, oh, this is like a weird. It's funny because that was like what got me into it, and I never actually played that deck specifically. I played
because you played with Voltaire.
Voltaire. We also opened a shiny Voltaire, which helped. Like we were opening Aria and like had a lot of the cards already, and opened Rain Razors. I think
it was the last draftable set, so we were opening a lot of that.
Yeah, it was just something about it like seemed cool, and then I sort of like started reading the Lexi channel on the main Discord and like looking up builds on FabDB and kind of like gradually getting the cards and playing with it. And I just found it really fun to play for some reason, and that was like the deck that pulled me into the game. And it's funny in hindsight because I was playing Blitz on hard mode with like a deck that could barely block. I guess it's like we didn't have the expensive armor for other classes anyway, and we already had a Tunic. So just like by getting a New Horizon, we had the legendaries set for a deck already, and then just needed like Art of Wars and Endless Arrows and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, then the deck I played in CC was also Lexi, which I don't even think was like a bad choice for. It was like an off-meta choice for the CC event, and I think if it was more,
yeah, I mean everyone was playing Starvo Chain and Prism, and I was on Viscerai even after the post bans,
and I was on
Chris
hybrid,
was on Lexi.
Hybrid Lexi.
Because we didn't fucking know anything. I mean, I didn't know how. This is the first year I was like 4 months into being into the game. Yeah. So I didn't know.
I played like 2 games. I played like a handful of games of CC ever when we went to this event. It was just I was like on the fence about even registering, and I was like, I think I should do it just for the experience of being in it, and I'll plan to lose every game, and it'll be fine.
And you won 2, right?
I won a couple games. Yeah.
I think I won 2.
Yeah.
Felt good about it.
I think it's like you actually could, because Yuki did pretty well with Lexi. That was more like targeted, a little less fuse and targeted to deal a ton of damage to Starvo. And I think just was like at the top tables for a while, and then had a couple bad losses that pushed her out of the contention. But Lexi was like a potential choice then. I think now she's a stronger meta choice because she got so many good cards in Outsiders. And yeah, it's really cool for like a deck that I played a lot kind of just for fun, and because I thought it was cool to now be a strong meta choice. So it feels like I have like the basic play pattern of the deck under my belt already and can just like play it with new cards.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I will be playing Uzuri because I think she's secretly good. Good, not secretly. I mean, like she's top 8 at a couple things, but I have not lost to Alexi. I think she's really good into Ranger. I think she's fair. It's not a bad matchup into Guardian. It's an interesting deck, and I'm enjoying playing it, and I'm not really trying to spike the fucking calling, so I think that's what I'm going to be doing. I think that Zuri is a very cool hero who does a lot of cool things, and I think it's interesting because I was saying that like what's interesting about Azuri is that the math doesn't like add up in terms of doing quote unquote broken things, because people think about it in this way that is like, well, if it doesn't go above rate then it's not good. Yeah. But it's like the only reason you would want to go above rate is so that you're going to do damage or get on hits through.
Or be able to like Oldham goes above rate with defense, where he can always stop damage and almost never get hit and just make decks wear out their attacks or whatever.
Right. But the problem with the Zuri is that even though it's not quote unquote above rate, like the order that the damage comes is very difficult to block efficiently. Like very difficult.
For sure. You can make it impossible sometimes with your weapon and like the swap and attack reactions and shred and stuff.
Well, like for example, if you play a pump and then you play an isolate, that's 6 dominate coming at somebody. And then you could feasibly, if they say, okay, well, I'll wait until reactions to like block from, from Arsenal or whatever, you could then swap it out with a Command and Conquer,
Mm-hmm.
and then, or a backstab. It doesn't even have to be a Command and Conquer.
Mhm.
I mean, that would come in for less damage.
Yeah.
But like, then you could block it. Then you could swap it out with a Command and Conquer, and then they can't block it.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they're taking 6, and I think people underestimate the fact that it's not that you're presenting less damage,
Mm-hmm.
but they are also taking that much damage in a way that they wouldn't if they had more options.
Right.
For example, the reason spider bites cost 2 is because you can like react to them, and like it's
Mhm.
like I played an Oldham, and you play the spider's bite,
Mhm.
and then they're like, oh, I'll crown, and then you vambrace
Mhm.
with the one floating,
And
and
now
then it's
they're
like,
not- yeah.
okay, well, block it or don't,
Mhm.
and and now all their actions block for 1 less.
yeah.
And if it's a nerve scalpel, all of their reactions,
I think that one's reactions. Yeah.
and if it's a scale peeler, all their armor. So
Yeah.
their shield doesn't work either,
If you can hit them with the scale peeler, yeah, then they can't use
which
their
I was
shield.
doing frequently.
And they all have piercing, so they can't just block the dagger with their shield and
Yeah.
always prevent the damage.
It's the next attack, right? Like it's not the whole turn.
The next time they defend. So if they defend with multiple, then like all of them have minus. But it's like
Right.
the next time they're defending with a thing of that type. Yeah, and
And you're doing usually one action. But then being able to like just with a couple contract cards, surgical and leave no witnesses,
mhm.
and plunder the poor, you can get back your boots. So you
Mhm.
get like 2 go again turns maybe.
For
like,
sure, yeah.
And then that's 2 block too. So it's a really interesting deck that like sneaks in damage. And I
yeah,
think
it's really good theming of
way
like, being
more-
an assassin.
way more than Arachne, I think.
Yeah, and
where-
also disruption. Yeah, it's like compared to Arachne, it feels like even for the contract game plan, there's no reason to run Arachne over Uzuri. Like you could just be an all contract deck
Mhm.
and still just like because of the sneakiness potential you have with Uzuri, people are gonna have to play against it differently, or at least like sideboard differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think you might think like, oh, well, you just race Uzuri.
Mhm.
But that's tough because
They have disruption.
She can block really well
Mhm.
and like do that same thing with only 2 cards or sometimes 1 card, depending on what the card is.
Yeah, if it's leave no witnesses, that like threatens your arsenal.
Or if it's Codex of Frailty.
Yeah, she has the
Um,
codices, which are very, very strong cards.
Those are they're very strong cards and they are very disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
Because she can put inertia on you, frailty on you. It's a really interesting deck. So I think I'm going to be playing that. Don't think I'll probably win
Mm-hmm.
the calling, but
You could do well. I don't know.
I think I could win some games with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really hard to. The calling is going to be very competitive, like because anyone who is like good enough to play in the Pro Tour, but then not quite good enough to make day 2, is like they can just enter the calling and then try to win that event. So there's going to be a lot of like really, really good players in the calling who are really good at CC and have a lot of practice.
Of course. I think you'll do okay.
We'll see. Yeah, I'm hoping to do well, but I also can just, if I do badly, I can play in the Blitz Battle Hardened the next day.
So who do you think will win the Pro Tour?
Win the Pro Tour?
Do you think it will be Azalea like everyone is assuming?
I think I did. Someone had like a Twitter poll that was like, what class will win? And I think I did vote for Guardian. Kind of just because I think that like...
You think Oldham?
I think at like the very highest level of play, like I think some of the best players gravitate towards decks like Oldham, where you get like agency over the game. It's skill expressive. The game goes for a long time. You can outthink your opponent. You can force your opponent into awkward situations.
Mhm.
You also just kind of have like not any really terrible matchups. Like there's nothing that's going to be unlosable. So I could sort of imagine that like a lot of not so much because I think that like in a vacuum Oldham is actually like the obvious best deck, but I think it's like close enough to the best deck that a lot of the best players will play it, and so that's who's going to be like the top tier play will come from Oldham. That's my theory, but I could be totally wrong. And I think some really good players are going to be on Ranger as well. Like I would definitely not discount Yuki Lee Bender on Lexi, which I don't naturally know if she's playing Lexi or Azalea or if she's playing either Ranger, but she's a really, really good Ranger player, and it's a Ranger meta. So if she's playing Lexi, I could easily have her taking it. I don't know. It's hard to... If I had to guess a hero, I would guess Oldhim, based on how I think a lot of top players will pick their deck.
How do you think Kano will do?
Kano, I think a few people will bring Kano. Like always, like there's always a few. I could see some of them doing well, but it seems like a pretty hostile field for Kano because, like, well, I don't know. I think it depends. I think in the calling, Kano would be a terrible choice because in the calling, I'm expecting a lot of Dromai. Yeah. Because Dromai always seems to be a deck that's like overrepresented compared to how good its results are. It's a deck that a lot of people really like for a good reason. You know, it's got like cool art, cool shiny dragons. It's fun to play dragons. So I think there'll be a lot of Dromai. And so I think any Kanos that hope to get there will just be like stomped out of the calling by Dromais. If they get lucky and they can take down, I don't know, it's tough because even Ranger, like Lexi with a couple of sideboard slots, if she's just like, I'm going to run Heart of Ice and Shock Charmers and Null Rune Boots, unwinnable for Kano, basically, I think, at that point.
How many blues does Lexi run?
They run 15.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Out of 60?
Yeah.
I don't know.
She can side in more up to 18, I think. I don't know. I think like having Shock Charmers to stop Aether Wildfire from being that good.
Spellvoid does help, but like...
I'm not saying it's like unwinnable for Kano, but it becomes a very tricky matchup because Kano also can get so disrupted by all the inertia and on-hits and stuff.
It's true.
If you are disrespecting Kano, you might just have 1 or 2 AB in your Lexi deck. That's a lot harder. Then you're just an aggro deck with 1 AB hoping to high roll, which I've been there as Fi, and you can definitely win, but
it's possible.
You're leaving it more up to RNG of what your cards do and what their cards do.
Right. All right. Well, I think that's a very exciting idea that Ranger could win. I hope Oldhim doesn't win. I personally think that there's going to be some surprises.
For sure. Yeah.
I don't know what they are though. Like I think that Azuri will do better than most people give her credit for. I think probably some bigger. My sense is like the CC Azuri feels a lot like a very powerful Icelander. Like when you win, it's very like I've been chipping you down in a way that you weren't like really aware of. Like it gets away from people.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
it's really scary to be at low life against Uzuri.
And also you're saying like, you know, oh, okay, well I'm taking 3, I'm taking 6 every once in a while, but sometimes I can present 15.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes I can just be like all of a sudden.
Like if you swap in a Ravenous Rabble off your stealth and you're like, okay, now I have 5 and go again, and then I'm attacking more.
Yeah. 5, go again. And then one time I did a Spider's Bite, and then from Arsenal, Death Touch.
Okay.
And then Black Teched that.
Oh,
Death
nice.
Touch.
Because they let it hit.
Uh-huh. And then Codex of Frailtied with no cards in my hand.
Yeah, yeah.
Then took back the same Death Touch. So that's like 13 damage plus 2 Blood Rots.
Yeah.
Which is 15.
Yeah, yeah.
Or yeah.
Yeah, the Blood Rot.
No, it's 13 plus 4 is 17.
17. Damn.
It's 17 damage.
It's a scary turn.
It's a scary turn, and people are not really preparing for that. And if you have 10 life left, that can end the game.
Yeah. So she can really grind people into a state where then the late game is scary, and you kind of have to play badly. Like you have to overblock or overcommit.
Exactly. And so that's what I mean. Is it feels kind of like Icelander. I wouldn't be surprised if some really good players are on Uzuri and people are like, what?
Yeah, yeah.
But
I think also some people will probably do okay on Icelander. Like I think it's not nearly as good of a choice as it was in the last metagame where it was just a top tier deck. But I think it can tech for the bad matchups like Ranger, and it still does really powerful things. It's a strong deck, I think.
It's true. I don't think the people who you expect to be on Icelander will be on Icelander though.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So I think the next time we're going to talk to you we will be. It will be after.
Mhm.
It'll be after we get back.
Oh yeah,
We might do a little vlog episode
Mhm.
while we're in Baltimore. That will come out after Baltimore.
Yeah, for sure. I've been thinking of at the very least, like, I don't know how feasible it is to like run around recording video as well, but we have a great portable recorder that I could just like have in my backpack with mics and just kind of like talk to people.
I think
At
we
the
can do
event hall?
video
You think we do video too, like with our phone or something?
or with this thing.
With this thing? Yeah, sure.
It has a battery.
Okay.
We gotta like learn it, but
We can figure
I
it
think
out,
you
but, like-
plug. Anyway,
Yeah.
we're gonna do a little vlog video.
At the very least, we'll record some like random like snippets with people. I'm imagining like, because Tall Timmy is going to be there and he's a fan of our show, so we could
Tommy
do
will
sort of
be
an
there. Flake will
impromptu
be
like
there.
conversations.
People we know will be there.
Mhm.
So it'll be a fun time.
Mhm.
If you are going to be in Baltimore, we'll see you in Baltimore. Please
Mhm.
come and say hi. Play a game. You know,
Mhm.
I'm so excited for a lot of the side events.
It's going to be great. A lot of
I'm-
gaming.
I'm building a UPF deck. I'm building a commoner deck. I've got my Blitz deck all set up.
Mhm.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's
gonna be great,
I'm very
yeah.
excited. I'm excited to wheel and deal. I'm excited to see Peter from MinMax.
Mhm. Oh yeah, a lot of wheeling, a lot of dealing.
I love to.
Yeah. A part of me is
I mean,
actually
he's just fun to hang out with.
Yeah. I'm almost like I don't want to drop out of the calling, but like I'm imagining it'll actually be more fun to play Blitz Icelander, where it's like the mirrors are fun,
In the battle hardened.
the games can end really fast, and it just is broken. So if people aren't running it, I'll be like, oh hey, a free win. Whereas Lexi is like, I'm gonna have to work for every win, even if I do win.
Right.
So if I don't do well in the calling, I will.
Okay. Here's an interesting question though. Would you rather, if you could just choose, would you rather day 2 the calling, or win the battle hardened?
Win the battle hardened, no contest. Are you kidding? That's
No.
somewhat better. I thought you were gonna say win. Would you rather day 2 the calling or play in the battle hardened?
Well, you can play in the battle hardened for a fee.
For
And
50
anybody
bucks.
can do it.
Yeah.
I'm saying.
No, it would be. I would get a gold foil and a PTI, and I'd be on the
I
articles.
know,
and shit.
I'm
It would be
saying-
amazing to win a battle hardened.
Okay. Let's try it this way.
Okay.
Top 8 the calling,
Okay.
or win the battle hardened.
Top 8 meaning like I know I'm gonna not win, or just that like I'm guaranteed to top 8, but otherwise don't know what's gonna happen. I think I would much rather top 8 a calling.
Okay. So it's the glory for you.
I mean, I think it's better prizing to be in the top 8 of a calling, or like equal prizing to be in the top 8 of a calling.
Okay, it's the money for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just there's more. It's a calling is a lot cooler. There's not many callings. There's a lot of battle hardens.
That's true.
It would just be really fun. I mean, it's like
So you want to do both.
I think in either
You want to play both, but
in either case, like being in the top 8 of something would sort of feel like being in the money, where it's like
yeah, of course.
if I lose, I'm still happy, and it's going to be cool because it's on camera. It would just be cool to like be in a game that is like high level enough that it's like talked about, like, oh yeah, this was the top 8 list from a calling or a
Right.
battle hardened or
Sure.
whatever. But yeah, being in a calling would be very cool. Top 8ing a calling means you are incredible at this game,
Right.
in my opinion.
Totally.
Like top 8ing any kind of competitive event that's that big. So yeah, I don't know.
Cool. Well, let's try, and we will see what happens. I will update you next weekend
Mm-hmm.
where Chris is. I'm sure I will win 3 games and then drop, and
Good
then
luck.
play the battle hardened. Is my plan.
Are you gonna play in the battle hardened too?
I might play side events. It depends on what's on Sunday.
There's probably some good side events.
But we'll
Yeah.
see. I'll let you know.
Mhm.
Anyway, thanks so much for watching the show. Please
Mhm.
like the video.
Mhm.
Definitely like the video with the thumbs up button,
Also, just with your heart, like enjoy it. You know.
heart in your soul.
Yeah.
And then also subscribe to the channel.
Mhm.
We actually have a really good subscriber retention. Like
Oh, yeah,
our
we were checking
views to
that.
subscribers is
Yeah.
pretty good. Better than some other people.
Mhm.
But there is a couple of you who aren't subscribed, and if you're not, why not?
Do it,
We're not gonna spam your fucking YouTube
Mhm.
dang, what is it called? YouTube subscriber feed
Mhm.
with a bunch of dog shit shorts.
We're not gonna
and
make
stuff.
shorts. Yeah, that's fine.
No.
No need for that.
Just you get the episode in your feed. It's fine. Just
Mhm.
click the subscribe button. It's easy. And leave a comment. Tell
Mhm.
us what you think is going to happen at Pro Tour. Tell us why we're jerks and why we are wrong about everything. Don't tell me that. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Charmer, I know that's not how you pronounce your name, but come on the show. Love your show. See you at Baltimore.
Oh yeah.
I think if your arm is all not fucked up.
I think he's going.
Yeah,
him and Logan are going.
Is Logan going?
I actually don't remember. I thought he mentioned it.
I don't know. I think he maybe isn't, but because he's in Arizona.
I thought he's in Iowa.
Oh.
Am I wrong?
Whatever. I don't know.
Somewhere in the middle.
Anyway, we'll see everybody there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for commenting and liking.
Mm-hmm.
And until next time, you are banished.
Banished.